Hello friends, how's it going? It's me, Betty Jean. In today's video, I am picking back up a series that I started last year. I think it was early last year. I was going through my old eyeshadow palette collection and declutter videos and chatting about all of the ones that I've decluttered in the past. Maybe chat about if I miss any, do I have any regrets? Have I completely forgotten that some of these have existed? I did like 4 parts of this series last year and then just kind of stopped it when I got to like the current time. So I figured it was time to pick it up again. I basically started referencing the palettes that I decluttered starting in 2021. So these will be the palettes going over 2021, maybe a little bit of 2022 as well. And I'm excited to talk about this, walk down memory lane a little bit. I have a feeling some of these have completely left my brain, but I want to chat about them, kind of chat about where my head was at the time. How do I feel about them now? Stuff like that. Before we get into it, I did of course film this look. It's part of my 2 looks video with the Nomad Royal Europe palette. This video should already be on my channel by the time this video goes up. As far as my accessories today, this necklace is from Ana Luisa. This wig is just from Amazon, and these glasses are from I Buy Direct, and yes, they are prescription. So without further ado, let's just hop in and walk through memory lane a little bit, chat about some palettes that I've decluttered in the past. I don't know how many we'll get through today. I have a lot screenshotted, a lot. Like more than I will get to in this video. So over the next 2, maybe 3 more videos, we're going to walk down memory lane a bit. So let's get into it. I'm gonna scooch over here so I have room to insert some pictures. I'm not really going in any particular order. I just started in my 2021 palette declutter video and just started taking screenshots of the ones that I knew I no longer had in my life, and I cross-referenced to make sure I didn't talk about any of these in past videos in this particular series. So let's just get into it. First being the Rare Beauty Confident Energy palette. This was the only eyeshadow palette I've ever tried from Rare Beauty, and it wasn't bad. It just didn't really give me enough. I don't reach for all shimmer palettes that often, but when I do, they need to be really special shimmers. They need to be shimmers that are offering me something really different, really glitzy, really glam, something that I can use for just a sparkle explosion all over my lids or to add in addition to other things. And this one unfortunately just wasn't really that for me. So I did end up passing this one along. Obviously everything I'm talking about in this video I passed along. And I'll be honest, I kind of forgot this one existed. But one that I forgot about even more is this Essence palette. It's the Daily Dose of Love palette. I don't know if this even still exists. I believe this is also the only palette from Essence I've ever tried. It wasn't horrible for a really affordable palette, but at the same time, there's really good affordable palettes out there. So this one wouldn't be my first recommendation. It wasn't awful. The mattes were fine. I didn't have patchiness issues. The shimmers were just okay. I feel like some were a little more glitzy than others, but overall it wasn't the most pigmented thing in the world. You had to kind of finesse it a little bit. Not my favorite, not really my vibe. Honestly, I'm surprised looking back that I even tried this one. I feel like now if I received this, I would have probably just known right off the bat this wouldn't be my vibe, especially because this color story isn't totally me. But alas, I tried it back in the day and now I know that it wasn't my favorite. So next up from Aether Beauty, this was the Topaz Mini Crystal Quad. Also, hopefully I can find pictures of all of these because some of these might long be discontinued because that's how the makeup world goes now. But this was a quad of 4 shadows, obviously that's what makes a quad a quad. 4 shimmers, 1 matte. I do like these tones, these kind of dingy, antique-y, greeny gold kind of vibes. I do like that a lot. However, I rarely reach for quads. I don't know what it is. That's just not my perfect size of palette. If I'm gonna reach for a quad, it needs to either just be full of really special shimmers or be something that, I don't know, is unlike anything else that I have in other palettes. For instance, I love the Kaleidos Black Jasmine. That's just my go-to like smoky palette because it's just the perfect grayscale into black with a pop of silver. But of course you could also get that out of a palette as well. But bottom line is I'm not a big quad person. I'm very particular. And this one just wasn't one that I was reaching for. It wasn't awful. I liked Aether Beauty's formulas. I found the mattes to be really soft and easy to blend, and the shimmers were really nice. They weren't anything that special, but they were nice. And overall, this just wasn't one that I was continuing to reach for. Continuing on with Aether Beauty, this is the Joshua Tree palette. I'm pretty sure I decluttered this one, this last declutter at the end of 2022. Just in case you're new here, I do my declutter series at the end of every year, so you can check out my most recent one if you want to, but we'll also be going over palettes that I've decluttered as well. And this one I'm pretty sure I just recently decluttered. And again, I did like the mattes. They had a really pretty blend to them. I feel like you could do a really gentle wash of color, or you could build them up to be pretty pigmented. And I did like this color story. It was kind of like desert vibes, you know, like colorful but muted. It was really, really pretty. I just wasn't finding myself reaching for this one. So unfortunately, it didn't end up sticking around, but I did have fun with this one for quite a while. And same with this one, the Moonlight palette, I think is what this one was called. It was so pretty. I mean, it's still really pretty. I like this color story. Love the bluey green purple vibes. I feel like I have a similar vibe on my eyes today, and I felt like this was just such a magical color story, but again, just compared to some things that I already have in my collection, I have formulas that I maybe prefer a little bit more. Maybe I can get more pigmentation, or the shimmers just offer something a little more glitzier for me. So this one didn't stick around anymore. Again, I think I decluttered this one at the most recent declutter. But yeah, I did like this one for a hot minute. I thought it was a really cute one. It just wasn't serving me enough anymore. So this is the Illamasqua Beyond Artistry palette. They sent this to me, I don't know, over a year ago, maybe closer to 2 years ago, because I definitely decluttered this 2 declutters ago. I did not keep this one around long term, but I decided to give this one a shot. It was colorful. Hadn't really been super familiar with these formulas before. I think I had tried one other palette from them in the past, but this one seemed like a different vibe, so I figured let's give it a shot. One of my least favorite palettes of 2021, if I'm remembering correctly. The shimmers were just very lackluster, very much almost borderlining just a satin. They weren't doing very much for me. And if I remember correctly, this was a fairly pricey palette. Like I think it was like between $50 and $60 if I'm remembering correctly. So obviously I didn't spend my own money on it, but I still take that into account when I can, as much as I can. And to me, this one was just not great. Kind of lackluster. If you want colorful shimmers, there's a million other options for cheaper and for better. So yeah, that one wasn't my favorite. Oh, this one is such a throwback. Oh my gosh. This is from the brand Certify, which I'm pretty sure doesn't exist anymore. If they do, they've been very under the radar for a while. But this was the Affinity 2 palette, I believe. I loved this. This is, oh my gosh, this takes me back. I think I bought this like peak 2018, like early YouTube days for me. I was playing with color all the time. This was back when brands were constantly releasing blue-green palettes, and I was loving my life. I loved this palette. I thought it was so beautiful to work with. I played with this one so much because back then I didn't have a huge eyeshadow palette collection either. I loved the range of light to deep. There were grungy tones in here. The shimmers were really pretty as well. Overall, I think I decluttered this one back in 2021. I just wasn't reaching for it anymore. At that point, like more and more things had come out and I discovered new favorites, and this one just wasn't what I was gravitating towards. So I decided to declutter it, gave it to a friend, and I stand by that. I do feel nostalgic looking at this palette because it's so cute and it was just such a throwback, such a good time, but alas, it's not the palette for me anymore. It had its run, I had my fun with it, and then I moved on to better things. Next is from Dido Cosmetics. I think for a hot minute, this was the only one that had survived for a while from the ones that I tried from that brand, because I tried a few, decided pretty fast that they weren't for me. The mattes were hit or miss on how good they were, and the shimmers were fairly lackluster. But this was an all matte palette, very vibrant. These were very pigmented. I like the mixture between rainbow palettes and like darker shades. I wouldn't really call this neon, even though I'm pretty sure it was called the neon palette, but they were brights, and I did enjoy it. I liked the pigmentation. It blended out nicely. However, I'm pretty sure my Blend Bunny palettes kicked this one out of the ranking because I'm someone who does not need a million rainbow palettes. And now that Blend Bunny exists and comes out with the perfect rainbow palettes ever, I don't need anything else. So I ended up giving this one to a friend. It just wasn't for me anymore. It wasn't bad. It was definitely the best one I tried from Dido, but nothing groundbreaking. Oh, this one is a throwback. Oh my gosh. I think this is also, again, take me back to like 2018 days. This was the Blush Tribe and Paulina palette. Blush Tribe also no longer exists anymore. But I was so excited. This was a small YouTuber I was friends with at the time. I feel like there was like a small group of us that chatted all the time, and it was just so much fun. But I was so happy to see that she got a collab. That was like such a big deal because small creators did not get collabs back then. And I was getting heavily into indie makeup at that time, and overall this was just such a fun time. I loved this palette. I loved the green, pink, purple. I thought it was such a unique color story, and I only just recently decluttered this one at the end of 2022, so this one stuck around for a very, very long time, and I loved it. The only reason I ended up decluttering it finally was just because I was just simply holding on to it for nostalgia and I wasn't even really using it anymore. And I try not to hold on to things just for the sake of holding on to them. I'd rather give them to friends so that somebody else can get use out of it instead of it just collecting dust. I try to be really mindful of that if I can, but this one holds so many memories. I played with this one so many times and I loved it. Juvia's Place. These were the two that stuck around the longest out of all of my Juvia's Place palettes because there was a period of time where I was collecting every single one back when I had my collector's mentality. And these ones stuck around for a long time, but alas, at the end of 2021, I finally let these go. I don't think either of these made it into 2022, but this was the Deuce palette. This was my #1 favorite, and I still stand by that it was highly underrated. Don't even think it exists anymore, but I thought this was such a cool color story. It's weird. There's kind of like weird pastels. It just reminded me of ice cream. It's super sweet, super cute. I love the shimmers in here. I felt really inspired when I used it because it was a really unique combination of colors, but eventually it just kind of got to the point with Juvia's Place where they weren't my favorite formulas anymore. It just wasn't my favorite brand overall anymore. And I wasn't using this one or the next one I'm going to talk about. So I did end up decluttering them, giving them to friends, and I'm good with that still. They were special for a while, but not any longer. And the last Juvia's Place one was the Tribe palette. My other favorite one. This was like a groundbreaking color story when it came out. Oh my gosh. The pops of neon with the grungy tones. Absolutely. I still think this is such a cool color story. The shimmers were really pretty. I feel like all of these were like a duochrome, if I'm remembering correctly. They had really pretty shifts to them. Not to the level that you see duochromes and multichromes nowadays, but back then this was pretty awesome, pretty revolutionary, and I love this. But again, wasn't using it after a point in time, so I didn't want to hang on to it just for the sake of it, but it did serve me a lot of fun for a while. Next up, I think we'll just do a few more. Next is the Ace Beauté Slice of Paradise. Similar to my Dido Cosmetics one, this was my perfect rainbow palette for years. I loved this bundle of 4 Ace Beauté Paradise palettes. It was my favorite thing ever for a hot minute. Loved this palette. It was, again, just my ultimate rainbow palette. This was the one that I kept instead of other rainbow palettes for a while. Then the Dido one came in. I kind of had both of them for a minute, but then again, the Blend Bunny one just wiped everything away for me. Those are the only rainbow palettes I need now. And as much as I loved this one for a time, it just didn't hold a candle to my Blend Bunny ones. So I did end up passing this one to a friend, but I loved this heavily for a long time. That like peachy shade in the middle, such a beautiful blush. And next with Ace Beauté, this is the Paradise Fallen. This one I let go of last year in 2022. Slice of Paradise I let go of in 2021, if I'm remembering correctly. But this one I finally let go of at the end of last year. And I was back and forth on it. I wasn't sure if I was going to or not, but I ultimately decided to just because I found if I'm gonna reach for like grays and cool tone browns and purples, I have so many other things that I tend to reach for first. This just wasn't my priority palette anymore. I wasn't using this as much as I could have, and I felt like its time had come and gone, and I'd rather give it to a friend. So that is what I did. Let's end it on a bad note. This was the e.l.f. I think Big Mood palette is what it was called. I believe this was my absolute least favorite palettes. Last year? 2021. In 2021, I'm remembering. It's all coming back to me now. This was my least favorite palette in 2021. It was patchy, it was hard to work with, the shimmers were so lackluster. There were a couple that had really nice sparkle and pigmentation, but so many of them were like dry feeling. Like this was just a bad palette. I feel like e.l.f. has just the most hit or miss eyeshadows of all time. They're either gonna be wonderful or they're gonna be absolute garbage trash, and this was a garbage trash palette. Hated it. I honestly regretted even using it. So do I regret decluttering it? Absolutely not. Do I regret ever trying it in the first place? Yes, I do. It was not a fun time for me. And I think that's where I'm gonna leave it in this video. I don't wanna drone like on and on and on because I feel like that's just gonna get boring. I'd rather just take like a section of palettes, chat about those, and then we'll discuss more next time. And then we can kind of chat more about specific ones instead of 500 at a time. Not really 500, but you know. Feels that way. But obviously, let me know if you want me to continue revamping this series again. If you want to check out the other ones, again, I have 4 that I did before this last year. You can check those out if you want to see some major throwbacks and some of the first palettes that I owned in Decluttered. Those are fun. I'm pretty sure everything is under my makeup collection and Declutter playlist, but I still have lots to go through. So We can do many more videos in this series if that's what you'd like. I love walking down memory lane and chatting about some palettes in the past. It fills me with nostalgia, but also with the ick in some cases. I would love to hear your thoughts on the ones I talked about today. Did you ever try these palettes? Do you still have any of these palettes? Are you obsessed with them, or did you not love them so much? I would love to know. If you made it to the end of this video, why don't you leave some blue and purple emojis, because that's my vibe today. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps my channel out a lot. And if you're not already, you can follow me on my other socials. You can join the battybean fam. I am battybean on everything: Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And if you want, you can subscribe. If you want to see more of my videos, I'm posting most days here as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, bye. Oh, I love this combo. My peachy nails with this bluey purple shirt. Some of these palettes I get like offended at looking again. Like the e.l.f. Big Mood just has the audacity even existing. I hope it doesn't exist at all anymore, if I'm being honest with you.